Welcome back, everyone. And let's get to our second conversation for tonight. Recently, there have been calls for the removal or resignation of the Minister of Communications and Digital Economy, Dr. Pantami. The call comes over what some term as statements which made the minister appear like a sympathizer of the Al-Qaeda and Taliban groups. The online rage went viral, accusing Mr. Pantami for his alleged affinity and endorsement of global jihadist movements. The minister is being criticized over some of his teachings, suspected to be espousing the teachings of Al-Qaeda and Taliban previously. Today, the minority leader of the House of Representatives, Honorable Hundeyin Elumelu, as you heard earlier before we came back from that break, joined calls for the removal or resignation of the minister, Isa Pantami, over comments he made suggesting religious extremism and his support for terrorism. Mr. Elumelu raised the issue as a point of order, citing breach of his privilege, explaining that the minister occupies a very sensitive position and this should not be overlooked. The minister was present today at the Federal Executive Council meeting, and when the Minister of Information was asked about this issue, this is a response of the Minister of Information.
I'm going to go into the issue of whether government is comfortable or not. I will answer your question directly. It was not discussed at the council meeting. Thank you.
It was not discussed. That was the obvious answer there. For several days, we here at Channels Television have deliberated about the matter and looked into how we want to tackle this matter. We've made several attempts to take up the matter, and because it's a personal statement attributed to the minister, we thought it was wise to speak to the minister himself to defend those things that he said, to have those comments he has made, to defend himself and speak to the issues. But he has since responded to us to say he cannot speak personally based on advice that he was given, and he has asked a friend of his and the Director General of the International Center for Islamic Culture and Education to speak on his behalf. He's briefed him, and he's a friend of his, to speak tonight. Dr. Kabo joins us from our Abuja studio. And someone...
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, Dr. Kabo. And someone who has written severally about this matter, a freelance journalist, David Hundeyin, he joins us virtually to also speak on some of his writings on this matter. Thank you, David, for joining us. So before we begin the conversation, let me allow you, our viewers, to listen to some parts of the statements. There are several of them attributed to the minister, which have caused the cause for the sack. Channels Television cannot independently verify the audio material. But listen and watch out for the translation of, because it's said in Hausa language.
Kasar ta zauna a cikin wannan hali har lokacin da aka tura mulki na monarchy, wato mulki na sarauta. A daidai wannan lokacin, it was around 1978 Christian era. Idan kai lissafi za ka ga kusan shekara 30 da suka gabata kenan. A wannan lokaci abin da aka tura wannan mulki sai zama kasar ta samu kanta cikin wani rikici. An yi yunkurin tura mulkin amma kuma sai sabbaba wani irin tashin hankali. To the extent that sai kafirai suka fara yunkurin shigowa kasar su yi dominating kasar Afghanistan. Saboda a koda yaushe kuke addini, kuke nutsuwa, kuke bautawa Allah, kuke karantar da addinin Allah, abokanan gaban mu kafirai, musamman a sahun gaba USA, United States of America, wannan iya tayar musu hankali. A koda yaushe sukan yi kokari su dan yi likimo, suna ga ina za su samu damar launching attack a kanku. In a yanzu kana ga su suke cewa su super powers ne, a da wanda ake gani super powers su ne USSR, wannan su suke gani a matsayin super powers. Sai suka samu dama tun da yanzu kasar tashi hankali da sunan kokarin promoting peace, kokarin tabbatar da zaman lafiya, sai suka shigo kasar Afghanistan. Wannan shigo wanda suka yi sai suna supporting bangare daya, suna kuma yakar bangare daya. Yau kaddara Allah ya kawo jarrabawa a Najeriya bainal muslimina wal kuffar. Suwa kake da man za su fara zuwa kasan nan? Amerika. Idan suka zo, shin za su karfafa musulmai ne ko kafirai? To dama haka suke su yi lakamo. Shi yasa ka'idar musulunci ba
There are a few others because there's that part of that, it's just a part of about 50-minute long audio and some of the teachings, some of these that has been attributed to the minister. But a response has since been attributed also to the minister to some of these responses. So some of the comments he's made in the past and some years ago that are generating controversies now, but based on his statement, let me read part of it to you right now. The minister responded to said, some of the comments I made some years ago that are generating controversies now were based on my understanding of religious issues at the time, and I have changed several positions taken in the past based on new evidence and maturity. He went further to say, I was young when I made some of the comments. I was in the university. Some of the comments were made when I was a teenager. I started preaching when I was 13. Many scholars and individuals did not understand some of international events and therefore took some positions based on their understanding. Some have come to change their positions later. Let's get my guests to discuss this matter. And let me allow Dr. Kabo to respond to these. Dr. Kabo, these are some of the audio tape, of course, that you have heard and listened to, attributed to the minister. How do you react to it?
Well, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to say some few words. First of all, as we know, Nigeria is a very democratic country with the freedom of religion. When you make reference to the Constitution of 1999 amended of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, you look at the section 37, it gives people the right to be either a Christian or a Muslim, or to be a traditionist, or any other religion actually of their choice. And of course, in the process, from what I've heard, from a good friend of mine of integrity and impeccable, character, that I know and that we have learned a lot, and we are also learning a lot actually from him. There is no way you can associate him to be actually among the USA, terror list. Is I am really intrigued and to hear and to understand, the discussion that is really going on. Because if I may think and reflect and assimilate and digest the kind of issues he highlighted and also the allegation from the daily independent newspaper that started the whole saga. They came round, reputed the allegations, withdrew their own comments and also apologized. So to me, as far as I'm concerned, it was just about character assassination. As far as I'm concerned, the debate has actually ended. What I can really not understand, I spent about 25 years of my life, in the UK, and we have worked, with Mr. Pantami and a diaspora and somebody of impeccable character, work in Saudi Arabia, and of course work in the university and many other places of our knowledge and understanding. We have never ever associated with him directly or indirectly with anything that is associated with terrorism. I don't understand. I think the only reason why people study history because they don't learn from history. Because if you look at the context, the encounter he had with Boko Haram, there are so many videos about that, countering, their own thinking and their own mentality and their own attitude, about issues actually of Boko Haram, saying that to read and to learn, is illegal, provided it is actually Western education. So I am really intrigued, and I don't even see it, as far as I'm concerned, the debate has ended in the sense that the people who put the allegation have not got a shred of evidence, actually in that matter. And the other context within which he is quoted, when I heard, actually the audio tape you presented, it was in the circumstances. In Islam, it's a religion of justice. It's a religion of fairness. It's a religion of equity. And of course, this is what people don't even understand. It means peace. And even the Quran that is being actually sent down to the Muslims is not only for the Muslims, it's actually for humanity. So there must be, whoever does the right thing, you say it. Whoever does the wrong things, you say it. And you try and you cajole and you make people actually to understand about tolerance, about respect, and about wisdom and about discipline and about integrity. And that was what he was preaching. And people do not understand, in Islam, beside the Quran and the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which is the Hadith, there is obviously a consensus of opinion among the ulama. There are 4 different schools of thoughts. There is Hanbali, there is Shafi'i, there is Maliki, and also there is also there is Hanbali. So the Hanbali, the Hanafi, the Shafi'i, the Maliki school of thoughts, they vary because it's based on the information that is available at that point of time, and also in their own locality, and also actually in their own situation. The kind of ruling that we are talking about is an interpretation based on what? The current circumstances and the situations actually we find ourselves.
All right,
so
Dr.
I can't
Kabo,
really actually understand.
Yeah. Yes. So you spoke about allegations. Before I allow David to come in, so that we can understand the basis of this conversation, let's speak to some of the materials, part of the audio, and some of the things that I've read and listened to. The minister in that is attributed to have made use of the word infidels severally in his preachings there. Mm-hmm. And I'd like you to explain to us what the minister told you. What are his intentions? And what was it driving at? When it does look, in the interpretation that we've seen, does look like there is some kind of support for the actions of some of these terror groups. And when he made reference to infidels.
Well, to me, as far as I'm concerned, we have a guiding principle which is derived, from the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we try to educate people and make people really understand. Islam is a religion of peace, and Islam is a religion of tolerance. Islam is a religion of understanding. And of course, in Islam, there are definitions in terms of either somebody is a Muslim, or somebody is a Christian, or somebody is a Jew, or somebody is non-Muslim. So if somebody is making references, and say this person is not a Muslim, these things are derived actually from the Quran, and the Sunnah in terms of the guiding principle. What makes somebody a Muslim? There are fundamental pillars of Islam, that somebody has to adhere before he becomes a Muslim. What somebody makes somebody a Christian? What somebody makes somebody a Jew? We need to understand, the context within what we are saying. If somebody is not a Muslim, he's not a Muslim. Because there are criteria, there are the do's and there are don't, and there are etiquettes, and there are mannerism, and there are things that are done in accordance, to Sharia. So I'm sure in these kind of things, some of these issues are quoted out of context. And even if you talk in terms of education, the 8 areas of intelligence, we all believe that people grow. When we were born, actually, there is no way you can born a child today and the child start working actually tomorrow.
All right, doctor.
Or start running tomorrow. So, people learn through the process.
Yeah. So just let me allow David, I wanted you to give the background to what the minister is at the back of the minds of the minister, things that he said in the past, and what he's thinking about those things that he said. Let me allow David to come into the conversation. David, thank you so much for joining us. Give us a sense of what you've written about on the minister's statement and what you have heard his friend, Dr. Kabo, what he said tonight.
Well, I'll start with what Dr. Kabo has said tonight. I find it very interesting that, first of all, the minister didn't want to appear by himself, and he sent somebody to front for him. And this person has come on the show and has spent 7 minutes speaking a lot of English and hasn't actually said anything. I found it very interesting that he said that there has not been a shred of evidence. That's a very interesting comment because there has been nothing but evidence, right? I have written 2,000-word investigative articles, extensively referenced with audio, with links to academic resources, with eyewitness reports. So I'm not sure what Dr. Kabo is on about when he says there's no evidence. There's a lot of evidence. And if he's not aware of the evidence, he's free to Google the evidence. There's a lot of it. If he's here to dissemble, that's a different matter. I can't help it. But going back to your first question, which was what sense do I have of what Issa Pantami has said? I just want to point out, first of all, that this goes beyond the singular speech that Issa Pantami delivered on September 12, 2006 in Bauchi State called the Suwaye and Taliban, which is where the audio extract that we're listening to came from. Issa Pantami has a long history of making incendiary comments and taking actions that lead to deaths, right? It is not a conspiracy theory to say that Issa Pantami is an Islamic extremist. He is an Islamic extremist. And he has always had that whiff around him throughout his career. I mean, there's a WikiLeaks cable from 2009 confirming that he was thrown out of his position as chief imam at mosque at Abubakar Tafawa Balewa University for sparking a religious crisis, right? And there is history there. So Dr. Kabo, if he's not aware of this, is free to Google this and read up on this. This is very well known, right? The reason that these comments have raised a furor of recent is because the audio file showed up on the internet recently, and for the first time, it was possible to independently verify that these things, which he has always been accused of, actually happened. He actually said those things. And I also want to correct the impression that this was a long time ago and his opinion has evolved over time. Dr. Pantami was born on October 20, 1972. That speech in particular was delivered on September 12, 2006, which means that he was 33 years and 11 months old. The person talking right now is 30 years and 11 months old. So Dr. Pantami was 3 years older than I am presently when he was making that speech. So he wasn't any kind of child. Let's be very clear about this. He knew exactly what he was saying. He was not a child when he was saying it. And those kind of opinions don't just evolve over time. Now, I want to quickly read out a segment from one of the quotes that he made during that speech. And I want Dr. Kabo to answer me, honestly, if he thinks that this segment is compatible with the idea of running a secular state, a multi-ethnic and multi-religious state. He says, and therefore we are praying to God that based on our understanding, we pray for a day when the images on the notes in our pockets will be removed. No Muslim cleric has ever spoken against these images as forbidden. May we be self-sufficient enough not to need this currency. It is against the religion to put even the images of the companions of the Prophet on the currency. May Allah help us to see that day when the Gregorian calendar, the calendar of the infidels that is on the notes, is removed. And that day is coming when it will certainly be removed. Now, I want Dr. Kabo to explain to me how this aim, which is essentially to remove the secularity of the Nigerian state, to take the images off the Naira notes, and to change from the Gregorian calendar, which we all use, to the Islamic calendar. I want him to explain to me how that differs significantly from the aims and aspirations of Boko Haram. As I've said previously on other mediums, the only disagreement between Isa Pantami and Mohammed Yusuf or Abubakar Shekau is the method that they want to use to achieve their Islamic utopian state. It's only the method that they disagree on. They are both extremists and they both have the same goals, right? There was a paper in 2017 published by the United States Institute of Peace, which I linked in both of my articles, actually, if Dr. Kabo can be bothered to Google them, which delineated the difference between the Al-Qaeda approach to Islamic terrorism and the ISIS/Boko Haram approach to Islamic terrorism. The ISIS/Boko Haram approach is more immediate, it's more flashbang. They want to use violence to create an Islamic utopian theocracy right now, which is what they're doing. They're going out and killing people to do that. Al-Qaeda prefers to use something called gradualism. They prefer to adopt a gradualist approach where they use the political levers of state, the instruments of state, the instruments of politics and education, as they put it, of Muslim faithful to push them away from moderate Islam toward extremism. The goals are both the same. They both have the same existential goals. So whether it's 6 or it's half a dozen, you are going to end up in the same destination anyway. So this idea that, we somehow fundamentally misunderstand Isa Pantami and, it's because we don't have some deep theological underpinning in Islam. Well, we're not illiterate. And I would really like it if Dr. Kabo didn't come on the show to insult our intelligence, because that's what he spent about 7 minutes doing.
All right, great. So before I allow Dr. Kabo to respond to some of the things that you have raised, I would like you, because this is an underlining intent in your writing, linking Mr. Pantami years ago when he made those statements and now. He said he has changed. Does that, it does look like you disagree with that, and why?
Absolutely, yes. And the reason is simple. He has not changed. And let me give just one very, very, very tiny example of how to confirm that this man is the same person he has always been. He has not evolved in any way. Right now, presently, if you go to the Twitter handle of the Federal Ministry of Communication and Digital Economy, look for any of the videos, probably from last month, YouTube videos linked on the handle, where a flag-off program for a skills acquisition program for 600 Nigerian youths was linked. Now, look at the YouTube channel, which the Federal Ministry of Communication and Digital Economy used to live stream its event. Was it the ministry's own YouTube channel? No. Was it a YouTube channel belonging to a mainstream TV station like Channels or any of its competitors? No. Was it even an NTA YouTube channel? No. It was a YouTube channel that belongs to an Islamic TV station called Al Afriki, right? When I say Islamic TV station, I mean an Islamic religious content TV station, a TV station that broadcasts only Islamic content. It's not a TV station that has Islamic leanings. It's an Islam TV station. It's like the equivalent of Emmanuel TV by Pastor T.B. Joshua or Dove TV by the Redeemed Christian Church of God, right? And this is the television station which the Minister of Communication and Digital Economy of the Federal Republic of Nigeria contracted to live stream not one, not several events, right, by the federal government of Nigeria, right? A federal event, right, that is being organized by what's supposedly a secular state is being exclusively live streamed by an unknown Islamic TV station. And in the articles that I wrote, I actually dug into the background behind this TV station. This TV station doesn't even have a functioning website, right? I dug into the ownership and everything. It's all the information is right there. So I would really like Dr. Kabo to explain to me how it is possible and in which universe it is explainable that this woefully misunderstood man, this victim of Southern bigotry, as they always try to portray it, somehow has created a situation where the Federal Ministry of Communication and Digital Economy has licensed an Islamic TV station exclusively to live stream content from the Federal Republic of Nigeria. I would really love him to give me an explanation that proves to me that I don't know what I'm talking about, and that all of us, somehow what we're seeing is not really what is there. Because this is a masterclass in gaslighting, right? And it's always really fun to watch this happen. So I really want to know what his explanation is.
All right. So David, quickly too, you mentioned in some of your writings also about the minister being enlisted on some foreign, international, no-flight list, or some countries who have listed him and linked him to terror. Can you confirm that? Do you have evidence of that?
I want to correct that statement you made. I never at any point said that Pantami was on a watch list. A news platform I am affiliated with published a story. I was not the one who wrote that story, right? And by the way, it is impossible to confirm or deny such a story because anybody with the faintest understanding of international relations knows that the US or the UK or whichever country is never going to voluntarily offer that information up. So it's impossible to confirm that information as somebody is on a terror watch list or is not on a terror watch list. The only way to know whether someone is on a terror watch list is for them to apply for a visa to the place or get on a plane to the place. That is the only way you will know. You cannot, as a journalist, go to the US embassy and say, can I please have this information? They're not going to give it to you.
All right. So it's good to clarify that. No, I'm asking so that you can clarify, because that's one of the issues that Dr. Kabo raised earlier on. So let me allow Dr. Kabo now to come into the conversation. And if Dr. Kabo can respond to some of the issues raised by David. First, on the statement he read on the issue of the currency and the Gregorian calendar, and how he said he wants things to be removed from the currency. Do you like to react to that?
Well, yeah, thank you very much, David. I can clearly say that from the discussion we are carrying and we are having at the moment, it is very, very clear, to us, there are issues, to do with miscommunication or information in relation to blackmail and other things of that nature. And the reason why I'm saying that is because it was mentioned that the U.S. terror list, actually Pantami was among them. But there was nothing like that, and that allegation has been refuted. And in another context, as well, I have just mentioned to you, and he has also mentioned himself, that you see, in the process of learning, we know that as we develop, we say that learning is recurrent newness. You will find an opportunity to relearn, unlearn, and also relearn, unlearn, and also learn. And he has made an example as he was talking in some of the issues on his own personal capacity based on information at that point of time, in that particular situation, and in that particular context. And that a certain extent in some of the issues we are talking about, people are just actually misinforming others and quoting things really out of context. The reason why is what makes you think what you produce as a material is a classical evidence. We need a classical evidence that clearly states that Pantami is actually harboring terrorists. There isn't anything like that. He has been having, lectures every year, actually in our center, International Center for Islamic Culture and Education. He is not preaching for anything other than sense of unity, other than respect, other than brotherhood. And even to some of the ministers actually in the past, they attend the session. And they are not Muslims, but they attend the sessions. And of course, the Minister of Sports for the last administration was one of those. And in all the context, is talking about peace, is talking about tranquility. And if he's talking about, a currency and so on, and somebody can exercise his own personal opinion based on the fatwa or the knowledge and information he has got actually at disposal. But he's always, preaching for a sense of unity. Look at, I tend to think the issue we are talking about, what is the issue about calling somebody even to resign by somebody who did some statements in 2006 and saying that, look, this is exactly what I meant, and this is exactly the current situation. I can believe that.
Dr. Kabo,
because this Kabo,
sorry,
yes.
I want us to take the issues one after the other. We will come to the issue of whether you should resign or not. What I wanted you to respond to is what David raised. Two major issues he raised now. The part where he said that the images on the notes in our pockets will be removed. He likened some of the ideologies of Mr. Pantami to those of these extremist groups and terror groups. How do you explain that? Are those just coincidence or what?
This is far actually from truth, because in his own impeccable character, I'm sure there are so many videos which he had encountered with actually the leaders of Boko Haram, and also in terms of his own activities, as you can see, about the national identity card that is currently pursuing, trying to tackle issues about insecurity, issues about terrorism, issues about banditry, and issues, about armed robbery, and issues about kidnapping. With all these elements in terms of action, not words, how can you say somebody is actually promoting terrorism? By making his own opinion, saying that this is what I wish to see, does that make somebody a terrorist? And also using another platform, to actually project, the image, actually of their own ministry. What has that got to do with actually the media where the information is actually being disseminated? We have got channels that are Islamic, we have got channels that are Christian, but at the same time, all these platforms are used to portray and also project, the projects, programs, and policies actually of government. So I can't even understand, the relationship between somebody making a statement of this nature and you allow or align somebody actually with terrorism. Look at what is happening. In what context? In terms of the Boko Haram, they know. They use, violence. They kill people, and they intimidate people. And we have seen what is really happening, actually in Borno State. So in what way and what statement has he made that is actually dangerous, that is putting lives of people at stake, or people's lives in danger,
so,
saying that we should exterminate other people?
All right, so Dr. Kabo, we'll spend the rest minutes that we have on the calls that have been that have gone viral about Mr. Pantami leaving office. And let me allow David. David, if you'd like to respond quickly to some of the things that he said, but I'd like you to also comment on what has been gone viral. Today, the minority leader has asked that the minister should resign or should be sacked. Why that?
Okay, well, let me start with the response to what Dr. Kabo said, first of all. His last comments that he doesn't see the relationship between someone being an extremist and someone's decision to host content from the Federal Republic of Nigeria on an Islamic-only channel. Well, obviously, that's the kind of obtuse comments that you make when you are ensconced in privilege. right? When you honestly cannot even see how a picture looks bad, because you yourself don't even think that differently from the person that you are defending. So of course he would say that, right? The Federal Republic of Nigeria is a country of almost 200 million people. It's multi-ethnic, multi-religious. I personally, I don't belong to a religion. I'm non-theist, right? So if I want to watch content from my government, why should I have to go to an Islamic channel to watch it, right? There are several secular TV stations. And by the way, the Federal Republic of Nigeria is not an Islamic country, right? It's a secular country. There's freedom of religion. Why is content from the government being hosted on an Islamic channel? If Dr. Kabo really doesn't see the problem with that, then unfortunately, there's nothing I can do. I can't help him. Going to your question about the events in the House of Assembly today, my only response to that would be that the Speaker of the House of Reps, Femi Gbajabiamila, has a habit of putting party politics above the national interest. This is not the first, second, or third time where he's pulling this kind of stunt. Obviously, the fact that the point of order was raised by the minority leader and the person in question is a member of the ruling party is it's a political minus. But at the end of the day, you have to look at it from a wide angle, right? Somebody who is in charge of the data of almost 200 million people, right? If this person cannot objectively be said to be a good character, and this ties into something that I wanted to quickly respond to Dr. Kabo about, where he said Isa Pantami gives lots of speeches about peace. Therefore, that means he's not an extremist. Therefore, that means he doesn't have sympathies with terrorists. Well, I don't understand what kind of reasoning that is. I mean, if somebody has certain opinions which they have held and which they have displayed for more than a decade, and then they go around for a few years giving a few speeches saying something else, I don't see how that has disproved anything. This again, I wish somebody would come to me with the evidence that I have presented and not just speak lots of English.
All right.
Going back to Dr. Gbajabiamila, one would hope that at some point he would understand that this is bigger than APC versus PDP politics. That this is a question about a man who is unsuitable to be in a position, wielding an immense amount of power over the data, over the identity of Nigerians. He has a huge data dump at his disposal. The data he has includes potentially the location data of Nigeria, the biometric data of Nigeria. Do you really want, even if by some stretch of the imagination, Dr. Isa Pantami is not actually an extremist, even if this is all just some kind of mistake, it's close to impossible, but even if it is, for the sake of argument, just for the fact that this whiff of controversy is hanging over this person's head, is there a shortage of people who can fill that office in Nigeria? Right. Why is Dr. Pantami so important that under no circumstances must he even be discussed? That we have the Minister of Information coming out and saying it wasn't discussed in the Federal Executive Council.
All right, David. Yeah, because we're out of time now. Let me allow Dr. Kabo. The argument out there is that, Dr. Kabo, that in some other crimes, at this kind of stage, the minister would have resigned. Do you agree?
Hello?
Please go ahead.
Hello?
Please go ahead.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Please
yes,
go ahead.
I think there are just two statements I wanted to make. I don't really understand the level of human intellect there by somebody talking about my projects, my programs, my track record, my targets, my key performance indicators. As a minister, this is what we have achieved using a variety of outlets, the social media we can all talk about, and there are many other outlets that belongs to the NTA and many other outlets to talk about the achievement, including some of these television stations. I can't understand why you can align that to somebody being actually a terrorist. It's beyond my own comprehension. And the other aspect, I don't think David is very much abreast with the criteria of appointing ministers. There are criteria in terms of DSS screening, top, left, right, and center, in terms of integrity, in terms of discipline, in terms of knowledge, in terms of wisdom, in terms of competencies, and so on. And once that is being filtered out, And if it was he had been a terrorist or aligned with the terrorism or whatever, there would have been no way he could be actually a minister. And when you go to the National Assembly, in the Senate, there is also a screening process. There is a due diligence and the character, interrogation about the qualities of that individual.
Dr.
So I
Kabo,
don't really understand why
we're,
somebody of this nature will pass through all those stages.
We're out of time, Dr. Kabo.
16 years of statement.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on tonight. Dr. Kabo speaking on behalf of the Minister for Communication. David Hundeyin, a freelance journalist who has written about this matter. Thank you so much, David, for creating time to speak about it. But that's our show for today, everyone. Many thanks for watching. I'm Shimon Kimale. Perfect.